Hello students, as we have seen, we have already studied the middle ear in detail, but still some points that we have to rememorize is the tympanic membrane. It is made from the ectoderm, mesoderm and endoderm. Some of the features of the temporal bone we have seen, and the external ear consists of the pinna and lobule and parts of examination, that is helix, antihelix, then the scaphoid fossa, concha, tragus, antitragus. The features, its blood supply and its nerve supply we have seen, and the clinical importance that in human being the ears are not movable due to the failure of the that anterior auriculotemporal muscle and posterior auriculotemporal muscles are not active in human being. That's why we can't move our external ears like cattle. Cattle can move their ears, or that wild animals can move their ears, but still the tympanic membrane, it is a partition in between the external ear, middle ear and internal ear. It consists of three layers, and it has a outer, that is lateral concave surface, and the inner or a medial convex surface. So it is a translucent partition between the external acoustic meatus and the middle ear. It is oval in shape and measuring about 9 into 10 millimeters. It is placed obliquely at an angle of 55 degree with the floor of the meatus. It faces downwards, forwards and laterally. The membrane has outer and inner surfaces that we just have seen. And in the clinical anatomy, we have also seen that the ear, to visualize the tympanic membrane, you have to stretch the external ear outward, backward and upward. But this should not be done in case in children, because they have the cartilages, their ears, the cartilages are little bit delicate or tender. So this tympanic membrane has a outer cuticular layer, middle fibrous layer, which is made up of superficial radiating fibers and deep circular fibers. See in the diagram, the circular fibers are minimized at the center and maximal at the periphery. The fibrous layer is replaced by loose areolar tissue in the pars flaccida. Inner mucous layer is lined by a low ciliated columnar epithelium. See the diagram of the tympanic membrane. All the three diagrams, that is the medial surface, relations of the membrane. Tympanic membrane, outer surface is supplied by deep auricular branch of the maxillary artery, and inner surface is supplied by the anterior tympanic branch of the maxillary artery. Venous drainage, lastly the veins opens into the jugular vein. Then the inner surface drain into the transverse sinus and into the venous fluxuses around the auditory tube. Lymphatic drainage. Lymphatics of the external ear pass into the preauricular and retropharyngeal lymph nodes. Nerve supply, outer surface, anterior inferior part is supplied by auriculotemporal nerve, and the posterior superior part is supplied by auriculotemporal branch of the vagus nerve. Inner surface is supplied by the tympanic branch of the glossopharyngeal nerve through the tympanic fluxuses. Now, we have already discussed the clinical anatomy of examination. Irritation of auricular branch of the vagus nerve may lead to the increase in the appetite by कान खुजाने की जिनको आदत रहती उनको भूख लगती है तुरंत कान खुजाने के बाद. So the reason behind it is the same is supplied by, it's supplied to the stomach. The root value is same to the nerve supplied to the stomach. Then the bleeding with the auricle between the perichondrium and the auricular cartilage, the left untreated fibrosis occurs. There may be bleeding may lead to the hematoma, formation of a hematoma. Membrane, incision of the membrane, that is naryngotomy, is a incision to the tympanic membrane. It should be done not in pars placida, not in the pars placida, but it should be open just below to that, because posteriorly there is a nerve or a tympanic. Now the middle ear, we have already seen the middle ear cavity. Middle ear is shaped like what is middle ear? Middle ear is a honeycomb shaped partition. It is a part in between the external ear and inner ear. It is shaped like a honeycomb which is filled up by the air. So middle ear is also called as a tympanic cavity or tympanum. Middle ear is narrow, air-filled space situated in the petrous part of the temporal bone. Between the external ear and internal ear, the shape and size. The middle ear is shaped like a cube. Its lateral middle wall are large, but the other walls are narrow, because its middle wall is large and other walls are narrow, because the cube is compressed from side to side. Vertical and anterior posterior diameters are both 15 millimeters. When seen in a coronal section, the cavity of the middle ear is biconcave and medial and lateral walls are closer than to each other in the center. The distance separating is 6 mm in the roof, 2 mm in the center and 4 mm in the floor. So a practical demonstration last time which I have given to you. See this cube. This cube is very resembling to the middle ear cavity last time. Just for your revision, see this is the middle ear of the left side, middle ear of the left side or middle ear cavity. See, this one is the anterior wall. The middle ear it is like a cube. So superiorly this is roof, inferiorly this is floor, this is lateral wall, this is medial wall, anterior wall, posterior wall, this is lateral wall, this is medial wall, this is roof, and this is floor. It is shaped like a cube. So this box is very resembling to the middle ear cavity. So the parts, the cavity, as centrally the medial and lateral walls are more closer. So it becomes like a RBC, bioconcave. The center is more nearer, and the distance roof 6 mm and in the floor 4 mm, and the center they are more nearer, that is 2 mm distance, and the middle ear cavity is filled up with the air, and there are 3 bones, 2 muscles and 2 nerves and air. These are the contents of the middle ear cavity. I will repeat how to write. First of all, the middle ear. What is middle ear? Middle ear separates the tympanic membrane, separates the external ear from the middle ear, and medially there is a inner ear, oval window and round window, and the inner ear is there. The middle ear is shaped like a, laterally it is shaped like a pistol. This, see, now the middle ear communicate with the oral cavity by eustachian tube. Through the roof it communicate with the tympanic plate is there. It communicate with the middle cranial fossa. Anteriorly it communicate anteriorly and downward via eustachian tube, and that posteriorly it communicates with the mastoid ear cells with the mastoid antrum, and medially it communicates with the inner ear and laterally to the tympanic tympanic membrane. Laterally there is a tympanic membrane. Try to understand lateral tympanic membrane, medially inner ear, above roof, below floor, anterior wall and posterior wall. Middle ear communicate anteriorly with the nasopharynx through the auditory tube and posteriorly with the mastoid antrum and mastoid air cells through the adductors of the mastoid antrum. Middle ear is likened like a pistol or slope course adductors of the epitympanic recess and auditory tube. The trigger of the pistol is a tympanic cavity. See, the trigger. This middle ear is further divided tympanic cavity. Tympanic trigger of pistol is tympanic cavity, an outlet of auditory tube handle and the mastoid antrum and mastoid air cells. The mucous membrane lining the middle ear cavity invests the contents and forms several vascular folds which project into cavity. This gives like a honeycomb appearance. Honeycomb interiorly, it is like a honeycomb in the interiorly, and it is filled up with the air. Now the boundaries. Roof is also called as a tegmental wall. The roof separates the middle ear from the middle cranial fossa. It is formed by a thin plate of bone called as a tegmen tympani. This plate is prolonged forwards as a roof of the canal for tensor tympani. Now, this middle ear communicates anteriorly with the nasopharynx through the auditory tube and posteriorly with the mastoid antrum and mastoid air cells through the auditors of the mastoid antrum. Middle ear likened to pistol. So, that floor, first of all, secondly is the floor. The floor is formed by a thin plate of a bone which separates the middle ear from the superior bulb of the internal jugular wall. Floor is also called as a jugular wall, and roof is called as a tegment. Tegmen tympani is above. That's why it's called as a tegmental wall or floor or roof, and floor is jugular wall because jugular vein is below in the floor. The floor is formed by a thin plate of a bone which separates it from the middle ear from the superior bulb of the internal jugular vein. The plate is a part of a temporal bone. Near the medial wall, the floor presents a tympanic canaliculus which transmits the tympanic branch of the glossopharyngeal nerve to the medial wall of the middle ear. Now, the anterior or a carotid wall. This anterior or a carotid wall is a narrow due to the approximation of the medial and lateral walls, and because to descent of the roof, the uppermost part of the anterior wall bears the opening of the canal for the tensor tympani. The middle part has the opening called as an auditory tube. The inferior part of the wall is formed by thin plate of bone which forms the posterior wall of the carotid canal. The plate separates the middle ear from the internal carotid artery. This plate of bone is perforated by superior and inferior sympathetic corticotympanic nerves and the tympanic branch of the internal carotid artery. Bony septum between the canals of the tensor tympani and for the auditory tube is continued posteriorly on the medial wall as a curved lamina called the processus cochleoformis. Its posterior end forms pulley around which the tendon of the tensor tympani turns laterally to reach the upper part of the handle of the malleus. This is about anterior wall. Now, the posterior wall represented is also called as mastoid. Mastoid antrum is there or mastoid process is there. Interiorly there are mastoid ear cells. The posterior wall presents the following features about downward. Superiorly, there is an opening or auditors through which the epitympanic recess communicate with the mastoid and tympanic antrum. The fossa inguinus is a depression which lodges the short process of a incus. The conical projection called as a pyramid lies near the junction of the posterior and medial walls. It has an opening at its apex for the passage of the tendon of stapedius muscle. Lateral to pyramid and near the posterior edge of a tympanic membrane is the posterior canaliculus for the chorda tympani through nerve. Chorda tympani nerve through which the nerve enters the middle ear cavity. Now the lateral or the membranous wall. Lateral or membranous wall means tympanic membrane. The lateral wall separates the middle ear from the external acoustic meatus. Mainly the tympanic membrane along the tympanic ring and sulcus. As the tympanic membrane we have already discussed, and the sulcus, partly the squamous temporal bone in the region of the epitympanic recess. Near the tympanic notch, there are two small apertures. The petrotympanic fissure lies in front of the upper end of the bony ring. It lodges the anterior process of the malleus and transmits the tympanic branch of the maxillary artery. The anterior canaliculus for the chorda tympani nerve lies either in the fissure or just in front of it. The nerve leaves the middle ear through the canaliculus to emerge at the base of the skull. Now the medial wall or the wall in contact with the inner ear. Medial wall is also called as a labyrinthic wall. See, bony labyrinth and membranous labyrinth. Labyrinth is a cochlear and semicircular canals are there in the inner ear. The medial wall separates the middle ear from the internal ear. It presents the following features. Promontory is, see the diagram, medial wall diagram is important, much more, it gives too much information for the anterior wall, posterior wall, and the roof also, and floor for the jugular vein, and carotid artery, internal carotid artery, and mostly the promontory, oval window and round window. So promontory is a rounded bulging produced by the turn of a cochlea. It is governed by the tympanic fluxuses. Fenestra vestibuli is an oval opening posterior superior to the promontory. It leads to the vestibule of the internal ear and closed by a foot plate of a stapes. The fenestra cochlea is a round opening of at the bottom depression posterior inferior to the promontory. It opens into the scala tympani of the cochlea and closed by the secondary tympanic membrane. The prominence of the facial canal runs backwards above the fenestra vestibula to reach to the lower margin of the adytus. The canal then descends behind the posterior wall in at the stylomastoid forearm. The important descriptions, there are see, 3 bones, ear ossicles are there. The contents of the middle ear. The contents of the middle ear consists of, first of all, 3 bones, malleus, incus and stapes. What are the contents of the middle ear? Middle ear cavity consists, these are walls, 6 walls. We have described what is middle ear, for external ear, middle ear and inner ear, roof, floor, anterior wall, posterior wall, middle wall, lateral wall, roof, floor. These are the 6 surfaces. Then the content. Middle ear consists of the air, the same air that passes from the atmosphere via mouth into the via eustachian tube into the middle ear. So pressure in the middle ear is very similar to the atmospheric pressure. You got? Now this middle ear consists of air, 3 ear ossicles, malleus, incus and stapes. Stapes is the smallest bone in the body. They are placed or linked to each other by ligaments, and tympanic membrane moves like this due to the sound waves, and the sound wave transmission, conduction of the sound wave reach to the base of the stapes to reach into the oval window. Okay, now 3 bones, air, 3 ear ossicles are the bones, then 2 muscles. There are 2 muscles. There are tensor tympani and muscle stapedius. Tensor tympani and stapedius, and 2 nerves, chorda tympani and tympanic fluxuses. I again revise: air, 3 ear ossicles, malleus, incus and stapes. Secondly, 2 muscles, that is the tensor tympani and stapedius. 2 muscles and 2 nerves, chorda tympani and tympanic fluxuses. Then the joints of the ossicle join to each other. Malleus joins with the incus joins with the stapes. They join to each other by ligaments. The incomalleolar joint is a saddle joint. Incostapedial joint is a ball and socket joint. These are the main two joints. Then the muscles stapedius, regarding the bones. See, the malleus is the largest bone of the middle ear cavity. It has a head which is in contact with the tympanic membrane. You can see even with the help of the instrument called as the otoscope, you can see the head of the malleus, because that tympanic membrane is little bit transparent. You can see the head of the malleus. The neck lies against the pars placida and related medially to the chorda tympani nerve. Anterior process is connected to the, see the diagram, it has an anterior process and posterior process. Anterior process is connected to the peritympanic fissure by the anterior ligament. The lateral process projects from the upper end of the handle and provides attachment to the malleolar fold. The handle extends downwards, backwards and medially and is attached to the upper half of the tympanic membrane. Now the incus. Incus is so called because it resembles like anvil, and malleus resembles like a hammer. It resembles like a hammer. Then and incus resembles like anvil of the blacksmith. It resembles molar teeth and has following parts. The body is large and bears an auricular surface that is directed forwards. It articulates with the head of the malleus. The long process projects downwards just behind and parallel with the handle of the malleus. Its tip bears a lentiform nodule directed medially, which articulates with the head of the stapes. So, malleus articulates with the incus. Incus articulates with the stapes. These join to each other by ligaments. Okay. Now, the stapes is the smallest bone. The smallest bone. The stapes has a base, and it has anterior, the anterior and posterior. See, it has a foot plate and anterior limb and posterior limb and foot plate. That foot plate articulate with the round oval window. See, this bone is called as a stapes because it is shaped like a stirrup, like a burner of a stove. Has a base, anterior limb and posterior limb. It is smallest and most medially placed ossicle of the ear. It has following parts. The small head has a concave passage which articulates with the lentiform nodule of a incus. So, incostapedio incus joint is a ball and socket type of joint. Socket is to the that stapes. Narrow neck provides insertion posteriorly to the thin tendon of the stapedius muscle. Two limbs, crura, anterior is shorter and less curved, and the posterior crura arm, that limb is longer, which diverge from the neck and are attached to the foot plate. The foot plate is foot piece, or is also called as a base. It is oval in shape and fits into the fenestra vestibuli, that is oval window. Joints, just we have seen. Now the muscles, there are two muscles we have seen, tensor tympani and stapedius. There are two muscles. This tensor tympani lies in bony canal that opens at the lateral end of the anterior wall of the middle ear and at the medial end of the base of skull. The auditory tube lies just below the canal. The muscle arises from the wall of the canal in which it lies. Some fibers arise from the cartilaginous part of the auditory tube and some from the base of the skull. The muscle ends at a tendon which reaches the medial wall and of the middle ear and bends sharply around the processus cochlea informis. It then passes laterally across the tympanic cavity to be inserted into the handle of malleus. Tensor tympani is supplied by the mandibular nerve. The fibers pass through the nerve of the mastoid, middle pterygoid, and through the ganglion with any relay. It develops from the mesoderm of the first brachial arch. The stapedius muscle lies in a bony canal has related to the posterior wall of the middle ear. Posteriorly and below, this canal is continuous with the vertical part of the canal for the facial nerve. Anteriorly, the canal opens into the summit of the pyramid. The muscle arises from the walls of the canal. Its tendons emerges through the pyramid and passes forwards to be inserted into the posterior surface of the neck of the stapes. This stapedius is supplied by the facial nerve. It develops from the mesoderm of the second brachial arch. The arterial supply of the middle ear cavity. The main arteries of the middle ear are as follows. The anterior tympanic branch of the maxillary artery, which enters the middle ear through the pectotympanic fissure. The posterior tympanic branch of the stylomastoid branch of the posterior auricular artery, which enters through the stylomastoid foramen. Pectoral and superior tympanic branches of middle meningeal artery, branches of the ascending pharyngeal artery, tympanic branches of the internal carotid artery. Veins from the middle ear drain into the superior pectoral sinus and pterygoid plexuses of the veins. Now, lymphatics of the middle ear. Lymphatics of the middle ear opens into preauricular and retropharyngeal group of lymph nodes. Nerve supply. They are derived from the tympanic plexuses, which lies over the promontory. The plexuses are formed by the tympanic branch of the glossopharyngeal nerve. Its fibers are distributed to the mucous membrane of the middle ear and auditory tube, the mastoid antrum, and ear cells. It also gives off the lesser pectoral nerve. Superior and inferior corticotympanic nerves arise from the sympathetic plexus around the internal carotid artery. These fibers are vasomotor to the mucous membrane. There are main two functions of the middle ear cavity. Firstly, transmit the sound waves from the external ear to the internal ear. That is the main function. Then, through the chain of ear ossicles, the transforms the air bones vibration from the tympanic membrane to liquid bone vibrations in the internal ear. Intensity of the sound wave is increased 10 times by ossicles. The intensity of the sound wave is increased by the oscillations of the ear ossicles. Then it is to be noted that frequency of a sound wave does not change. The intensity increases. The frequency doesn't increase. Intensity increases. That's why if a low intensity sound is there, the high intensity goes in our internal ear. That is the main function. Then behind the middle ear there is a mastoid antrum. Behind the mastoid antrum is important because see mastoid antrum is a small circular air-filled space, and main important clinical anatomy of the mastoid antrum is mastoid abscess. These middle ear infections may spread, especially in the children, may spread posteriorly into the via mastoid air cells into the mastoid antrum, and there may be abscess. This mastoid abscess is very dangerous. It comes out from the back of the external ear. The pus may comes out if it bursts. Okay. Now, this mastoid antrum is a small circular air-filled space situated in the posterior part of the petrous temporal bone. In the adult size at birth, it is of adult size at birth, size of a small pea, 1 centimeter in diameter, has capacity of about 1 millimeter. Bound with superiorly tegment tympani. This is the mastoid antrum. Superiorly there is a tegment tympani, and beyond it the temporal lobe of the cerebrum. Inferiorly mastoid process containing the mastoid air cells. anteriorly communicate with the epitympanic recess through the auditus. The auditus is related medially to the ampullae of a superior and lateral semicircular canal, and posterior superiorly. See the diagram of a medial wall. You will understand the mastoid ear cell, how it communicates with the anteriorly, superiorly above to the lateral side, to the below, how it that mastoid antrum communicate. Then the posteriorly it is separated from the thin plate of a bone from the sigmoid sinus. Beyond the sinus there is cerebellum. Medially petrous temporal bone, and laterally it is bounded part of a squamous temporal bone. This part corresponds to the supramittal triangle, that is 2 mm thick at birth and 1 mm per year, up to maximum of 12 to 15 millimeters. So interiorly, mastoid ear cells are a series of intercommunicating spaces of variable size present within the mastoid process. Their number varies considerably. Sometimes there are just a few and are confined to the upper part of the mastoid process. Occasionally, they may extend beyond the mastoid process into the squamous petrous part of the temporal bone. Mastoid antrum and ear cells are supplied by posterior tympanic artery derived from the stylomastoid branch of the posterior auricular artery. The veins drain into the mastoid emissary vein and the posterior auricular vein and sigmoid ear sacs. Now, in a danger trauma, the middle ear cavity of the bones may get fractured and the blood may come out from the, in the clinical anatomy, from the ear. The middle ear is a common site of the otitis media. Otitis media means formation of a pus into the middle ear cavity. Generally, the infection go via mouth cavity via eustachian tube in the middle ear, and infection spread into the middle ear may spread into the mastoid antrum, and generally it corrodes the tympanic membrane and pus comes out. Okay, now there may be inflammation of the auditory tube or blockage of the auditory tube. Should be surgically that block, because severe pains are there. If the internal pressure and atmospheric pressure do not balance, there are severe pains in the middle ear. Then inflammation, chronic and acute otitis media due to the infection. Then the ear on infected side is displayed laterally, can be appreciated from the back. Hyperacusis, due to the paralysis of the stapedius, muscle movement of the stapes is dampened, so sound get distorted and get too high in volume. This is called as a hyperacusis. बहुत जोर से सुनाई देता है, छोटी भी आवाज. Mastoid abscess is a secondary to the, just we have seen the mastoid abscess. Middle ear cavity, inflammation or formation of pus. Discharge from the ear is called as the otorrhea. Tympanic membrane, examination of the middle ear is done if the tympanic membrane perforation is there, is done with the help of the otoscope. The otoscope is the instrument that is used to visualize the tympanic membrane as well as ear ossicles and middle ear also. So these are the some clinical anatomy points regarding the middle ear cavity, one of the askable question, and the clinical anatomy you may write down the otitis media, chronic, acute, formation, mastoid abscess, then eustachian tube blockage, maringotomy. Hello students. Now the internal ear, a review of the internal ear. Internal ear is also called as a labyrinth. It lies in the petrous part of the temporal bone in the interior, means medial to the middle ear cavity. It consists of a bony labyrinth within which there is a membranous labyrinth. The membranous labyrinth is filled up with a fluid called as the endolimb. It is separated from the bony labyrinth by another fluid called as the perilimb. See, bony labyrinth, interior to that there is a perilimb, and in the interior of there is a membranous labyrinth which is filled up by the endolimb. Okay, that membranous filled up with the fluid called as endolimb. Now the bony labyrinth consists of the cochlea, a snail, goggle guy, separate cochlea, anteriorly. See the diagram number 18.90. Vestibule in the middle. See the vestibule in the middle, vestibular crest or vestibule, and the semicircular canals posteriorly. They are the parts of the bones. This is the bony labyrinth, and in the interior there is a fluid that separates the bony from the membranous called as the perilimb, and interiorly in the membranous labyrinth there is a fluid called as the endolimb. So there is a liquid conduction of the waves. In the middle ear there is a vibration of sound waves. The intensity increases only, but here in the internal ear this is a conduction, and this is conduction via liquid medium. So cochlea is snail shaped. Cochlea, the bony cochlea resembles like a shell of a common snail. It forms the anterior part of the labyrinth. It is conical. The central axis known as the malleolus, around which the cochlear canal makes 2 and 3/4 turns. The modulus is directed forwards and laterally. Its apex point towards the anterior superior part of the medial wall of the middle ear, and the base towards the fundus of the internal acoustic meatus. The spiral reach of the bone, the spiral lamina projects from the modulus and partly divides the cochlear canal into the scala vestibuli above and the scala tympani below. These relationships apply to the lowest part of the basal turn of a cochlea. The division between the two passages is completed by the basilar membrane. The scala vestibuli communicate with the scala tympani at the apex of cochlea by a small opening called as a helicatrina. The vestibule, this is the central part. See in the diagram number 18.19, vestibule has a crest. This is the central part of the bony labyrinth. It lies medial to the middle ear cavity. Its lateral wall opens into the middle ear by the fenestra vestibuli, which is closed by the footplate of the stapes, which is called as a oval window. Now the semicircular canals open into the posterior wall of the medial wall. The medial wall is related to the internal acoustic meatus and presents the spherical recess in front and the elliptical recess behind. The two recesses are separated by the vestibular crest, which splits inferiorly to enclose the cochlear recess. So two walls are there. Just below the elliptical recess there is an opening of a diverticulum, the aqueduct of the vestibular, which opens a narrow fissure of the posterior aspect of the petrous temporal bone, posterior lateral to the internal acoustic. We have already studied this last time, just a revision of this internal ear, bony labyrinth and membranous labyrinth, how the equilibrium, that is vestibular part, of the cochlear nerve, eighth cranial nerve is maintained. Petrous temporal bone, posterior lateral to the internal acoustic mat. It is plugged in life by the ductus endolymphaticus and a vein. No perilymph escapes through it. Okay, so generally there is no escape of the perilymph. Now semicircular canal. We have seen the cochlea, then the vestibule, and three semicircular canals. There are three semicircular canals: anterior or superior, posterior and lateral. Each has two ends. They lie posterior. See cautiously the semicircular canals. How they the bases. There are arches, anterior and posterior arches connect with the vestibule. See the diagram number 18.19. You will get the semicircular canal, how their bases are connected. Their foots are connected with the vestibule. That anterior or superior, posterior and lateral has two ends. They lie posterior superior to the vestibule and are set at a right angle to each other. Each canal describes to 2/3 of a circle and is dilated at one end to form the ampulla. These three canals open into the vestibule by 5 openings. Anterior canals are 3, openings are 5 only, not 6. The anterior or superior semicircular canal lies in a vertical plane at right angles to the long axis of the petrous temporal bone. It is convex upwards. Its position is indicated by an arcuate eminence seen on the anterior surface of a petrous temporal bone. Its ampulla is situated anterolaterally. Its posterior end unites with the upper end of the posterior canal to form the crus communis, which opens into the medial wall of the vestibule. The posterior semicircular canal also lies in a vertical plane parallel to the long axis of the petrous temporal bone. It is convex backwards. Its ampulla lies at its lower end. The upper end joins anterior canal to form the crus communis. The lateral semicircular canal lies in the horizontal plane with a convexity directed posterolaterally. The ampulla lies anteriorly close to the ampulla of the anterior canal. Note that lateral semicircular canal of the two sides lie in the same plane. Anterior canal of one side lies in the same plane of the posterior canal of the other side. See the diagram number 18.20 indicates their planes, how they lie in one plane. To know the balancing or that eighth cranial nerve, the vestibulocochlear nerve. Then membranous labyrinth. Now in interior to the bone there is a membrane. Inside the membrane there is endolymph. Outside the membrane there is a perilymph, and they are locked. The lymph do not escape out. Like the membranous labyrinth, it is in the form of a complicated but continuous closed cavity filled with the endolymph. The epithelium of the membranous labyrinth is specialized to form the receptors for sound, that is organ of Corti, for static balance, and the maculae, and for kinetic balance, the cristae. Like the bony labyrinth, the membranous labyrinth also consists of 3 main parts. The spiral duct of the cochlea, that is organ of Corti, anteriorly. See figure number 18.21. The utricle and sacule with maculae and organs of static balance within the vestibule. The semicircular ducts with cristae and organ of kinetic balance that lies posteriorly. See the diagram number 18.21. Now the duct of cochlea and that is scala media. The spiral duct occupies the middle part of the cochlear canal between the scala vestibuli and the scala tympani. It is triangular in cross section. The floor is formed by the basilar membrane. The roof of the vestibule of Reynolds membrane and the outer wall by the bony wall of the cochlea. The basilar membrane supports the spiral organ of Corti, which is end organ for hearing. It comprises rods of Corti and hairs of the cells. Hair is embedded in a gelatinous membrane called as a membrana tectoria. The organ of Corti is innervated by peripheral processes of bipolar cells located in the spiral ganglion. This ganglion is located in the spiral canal present within the modulus at the base of the spiral lamina. The central process of the ganglion cells form a cochlear nerve. Posteriorly, the duct of the cochlea is connected to the saccule by a narrow ductus aereus. The second wave reaching the endolimb through the vestibular membrane make the appropriate part of the basilar membrane vibrate, so that different parts of the organ of Corti are stimulated by different frequencies of sound. The loudness of the sound depends on the amplitude of a vibration. So now the saccule. See the diagram number 18.19 above. There is a saccule. There is a saccule and utricle. Saccule and utricle is also given in the membranous diagram number 18.21 also. Saccule lies in the anterior inferior part of the vestibule and is connected to the basal turn of the cochlear duct by the ductus aereus. The utricle is larger than the saccule and lies in the posterior superior part of the vestibule. It receives the ends of the three semicircular ducts through the opening. The duct of saccule unites with the duct of the utricle to form a ductus endolymphaticus. The ductus lymphaticus ends in a dilatation. The saccus endolymphaticus and the ductus and saccus occupy the aqueduct of the vestibule. The medial walls of the saccule and utricle are thickened to form a macula in each chamber. The maculae are end organs that gives information about the position of the head. This is static balance receptors. They are supplied by the peripheral processes of the neurons in the vestibular ganglion. That is vestibular part, balancing. Now, saccule gets stimulated by vertical linear motions, that is going in left. Utricle gets stimulated by horizontal linear motion, that is going in car. Now, the semicircular ducts. Three semicircular ducts lie within the corresponding bony canals. Each duct has an ampulla corresponding to that of a bony canal. In each ampulla, there is an end organ called as an ampullary crest or a cresta or a cupola. That is, cresta respond to the pressure changes in the endolimb caused by the movements of the head. Blood supply of the labyrinth. The arterial supply of the labyrinth is from the labyrinthic branch of the basilar artery at the base of the circle of Willis, or at the base of in the circle of Willis, a branch of the circle of Willis, or at the base of the brain. The basilar artery which accompanies the vestibulocochlear nerve and partly from the stylomastoid branch of the posterior auricular artery. The labyrinthine vein drains into the superior petrosal sinus or the transverse sinus. The other inconstant veins emerge at different points and open separately into the superior and inferior petrosal sinuses and the internal jugular vein. Now, the development of the external auditory meatus is dorsal part of the ectoderm. Auricle from the tubercles of first and second brachial arches. Middle ear develops from the an auditory dip to develop from the that is tubotympanic recess. Ossicles, ear ossicle develop from the first arch cartilage and stapes malleus and incus from the first arch cartilage. tapes from the second arch cartilage, and muscle tensor tympani from the first pharyngeal arch of mesoderm, and stapedius from the second pharyngeal arch mesoderm, and membranous labyrinth from the ectodermal vesicle on the east side of the hindbrain vesicle. The vestibulocochlear nerve, that is the nerve derived from the vestibule and the cochlea. Vestibular part is responsible for that balancing of the body, or the motions, and cochlear part is actual hearing. Now endolymph is produced in the stria vascularis. The process requires a melanocytes. Disorder of the melanocyte is called as a albinism or associated with the deafness. If sufficient melanocytes are not there, there is a deafness. Acoustic neuroma is a growth of a squam cells at cranial nerve. That neuroma extends into the internal auditory matters. The seventh cranial nerve will get pressed. There will be eighth cranial nerve paralysis, and the seventh cranial nerve paralysis. Reasons of earache are depicted. Various reasons. See, differential diagnosis of the pain in ear. First of all, vagus nerve. Secondly, pharyngeal lesions. Temporomandibular joint pain may radiate into the middle ear. Lesions in the tongue. Mandibular nerve may give pain in the middle ear. Dental causes, especially the upper jaw and even that of a lower jaw. Dental causes may give pain in the middle ear. Cervical spine lesions may get pain in the middle ear. Great auricular nerve or facial nerve may get pain in the tonsils, may give pain in the middle ear or in the ear. Glossopharyngeal nerve and tongue, posterior 1/3 of the tongue may give pain in the ear. So ear pain should be differentiated from actual ear pain or pains from there are actually disorders in other place, and pains are in the inner ear or in the middle ear cavity. That's all about the ear, external ear, middle ear and inner ear. Middle ear is more to be expected question. So you should, and that middle wall of the middle ear is important. Thank you. And read that pink colored from the textbook for your future.